FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
He lost his law license, okay? Couldn't practice law. And you don't read about this on Clinton.
Donald Trump on the attack last night on the Hannity show. I thought that was the bite of the night, and boy, did it set off the left. Let me tell you, Andrea Mitchell, all of the liberals running to the defense of the philanderer-in-chief Bill Clinton. Pretty amazing stuff there. Glad you're with us today on the Marc Cox Show. We got a lot coming up for you. Be sure and follow us there on Facebook at facebook.com/the Marc Cox Show. Anything you hear us talk about on the air, we're going to post up there to the Facebook page and also on the station website at 971talk.com/Cox. I'll tell you the best way to get access to that and an easy way to stream the show in case you're away from your radio for some reason. You can stream it right on your phone is that 97.1 app. Just go on there, look at it, download it. As soon as you click on it, you'll be able to access all of that information. Plus, of course, you can stream what's going on. We got some breaking news here a few moments ago. It just seemed just a few days ago we were talking about Morley Safer retiring from CBS News after all these years. Word has just come down, I believe, Jason Church, that he has passed, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we got word that he has died at the age of 84, just days after retirement.
Wow.
And, it's one of those guys that, you look back and you see all these old school news guys and everything. And, granted, with 60 Minutes, it was a little bit more involved. But, it's sad to see all these guys going away,
Mike
guys
Wallace,
and gals.
Harry Reasoner.
Yeah.
And now Morley Safer. All right. Well, more on that as well. And we also got word a few minutes ago that they've actually found some wreckage from that Egyptian airliner in the Med. So we'll have details on all of that and more for you right here throughout the show today. Also, coming up, we're going to talk more about this feud on the Democratic side between Bernie Sanders and the Hillary Clinton camp. That has got more sparks than anybody would have believed. And today, we got just a glimpse, a crack through the floorboards of the bias in the mainstream media. I'm going to play you a bite that's just about hard to believe. And although they tried to walk it back after they said it, you know exactly what they were talking about. That just the blatant bias on the part of some people in the mainstream media when it has come to covering this race, the Republican side of the race, Donald Trump, those sorts of things from CBS This Morning. I'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. First of all, I want to introduce our guest. He is Josh Hawley. He is he's a professor of law at the University of Missouri. He's also a candidate for Missouri Attorney General. Josh, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Great to be with you, Mark.
Hey, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time today. Not much to interest a constitutional lawyer going on these days, right?
That's right. Oh, it's just a boring world out there. I tell you what, this is we are in, I think, Mark, a constitutional crisis, and there's more evidence of it every day.
Well, I've got a couple issues I wanted to touch on with that, if you don't mind. First of all, I was hoping I could get your reaction to the list of Supreme Court nominees Donald Trump released yesterday. Included a Missourian on there, Ed Grunder, who I've known for years when he was a prosecutor here in St. Louis before he got appointed to the court. What's your reaction looking at that list of folks?
Well, it's a good list. It really is. I know everybody on the list, and one way or another, my practice is focused on as a lawyer in the federal courts of appeals, which is where these folks are located, and then at the U.S. Supreme Court. And Judge Grunder, right here in St. Louis, is a phenomenal judge, fantastic judge, and would be a great choice. So I thought it was very encouraging. And I tell you what, it's a real contrast between the kind of people that Hillary Clinton would put on the bench. So this is, that list is a list full of constitutionalists, and that is what we need on the bench and in office. We need people who believe in the United States Constitution the way that our framers wrote it. Which
we're not going to get out of the current nominee or anybody that might come from a Bernie Sanders or, as you mentioned, a Hillary Clinton. That's for sure.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, the choice is really stark that way. And, look, we're at a moment when we have to decide as a country, Mark, are we going to restore our Constitution or are we going to rewrite it? Are we going to continue to have and to recommit ourselves to the constitutional republic our framers gave us, or are we going to go a completely different direction and become a whole different kind of country? And that's the decision we have to make with the U.S. Supreme Court, which hangs in the balance. That's the decision we have to make in all of these elections, from the presidential election right down to the race for Attorney General here in the state of Missouri.
Our guest is Josh Hawley, who is running for Attorney General in Missouri right now. If I could stick to the issues regarding religious liberty for a moment, the Sisters of the Poor decision that was basically, I don't know, handed back down by the Supreme Court the other day to the lower courts to work something out. Would you give me your opinion on that? Some people felt that was at least temporarily a victory for the Little Sisters of the Poor.
Oh, I absolutely think it is. I mean, I absolutely do. I filed a brief in that case, Mark, on behalf of the sisters, and I had the privilege before I started this campaign to work on the sisters' case. And I think it is a victory. It is a quiet victory because the court did it in led by the conservatives on the Supreme Court. They did it in a very savvy way in order to get the 8 votes that they needed. But make no mistake, I mean, what that order says is that the government cannot force the sisters to pay fines if they will not provide abortion-inducing drugs. And that is exactly what the sisters asked for. And so the court, returned these cases to the lower court. But what the Supreme Court has telegraphed is, look, government, Obama administration, we don't buy your position. You've admitted to us that you don't need to force these religious ministries to violate their faith, so quit trying to do it and come up with a compromise that doesn't force them to violate their faith. That's a win.
Why has this come up again in light of the fact that you helped lead the fight that Hobby Lobby won in the Supreme Court over religious freedom and the ability to be able to say, no, we don't want to pay for that? How did the Little Sisters of the Poor end up still being pinched?
The Hobby Lobby victory, as you say, Mark, was a great one. I had the privilege to be one of Hobby Lobby's lawyers. It's still the only victory over Obamacare in the Supreme Court, and it's such an important case. Landmark win, but you're right. It just shows the tenacity and the sheer cussedness, if you like, as my grandfather used to say, of the Obama administration, that they would, even after losing Hobby Lobby, they would go after nonprofit religious ministries like the Sisters, like Wheaton College, like Notre Dame, all of whom are involved in this current case at the Supreme Court that just got remanded. So I think the reason is the Obama administration claimed that they tried to accommodate, quote unquote, these religious groups. In fact, they did nothing of the kind. And so here you have the specter of an administration that is trying to force these religious ministries to violate their faith. And when the religious ministries say no, the administration said, well, we tried to work with you, and you should just take our word for it and shut up and like it. And that's what the Supreme Court said no dice to earlier this week. That's why it's a victory. And the Obama administration should stop their assault on religious liberty. It has been the most aggressive, wholesale assault on religious liberty in this country in our nation's history. And it's time for them to get the message and knock it off.
Yeah, amen. We're talking again with Josh Hawley, who's a constitutional professor of law at the University of Missouri and obviously running for Attorney General. That's why having a strong constitutionalist is so important in this statewide role and why we need to get a Republican in that office. Can you talk to me about your reasons for running?
Yeah, absolutely. I've never run for office before, Mark. I mean, my background is not in politics at all. I've never held office. My background is in the practice of law, and I've been a constitutional lawyer since I started my career as a lawyer, and I've focused especially these last 2 years on religious liberty as a religious liberty lawyer. And I decided that it is time. We need, in the state of Missouri, we need an attorney general who is going to go into court and stand up for our Constitution and is going to stand up for our rights and values as Missourians against this incredible, unprecedented overreach by the federal government and by state bureaucrats as well, because they're doing it on the state level too. And we just have not had that in 24 years in the state of Missouri. For 24 years, we've had liberal attorneys general in this state who are also professional politicians. And my view is enough of the professional politicians. Let's elect a constitutional lawyer as Attorney General who is ready and able to defend our constitutional rights.
Yeah. And we've seen cases as well where our Attorney General has been hesitant to jump in and join other states in fighting this effort by the Obama administration to put its foot on the neck of the states.
Obamacare is a great example of that. Our Attorney General would not join the other states in their suit against their suits, plural, against Obamacare. There were two of them. They wouldn't join. Our Attorney General would not support us in Hobby Lobby. When we were fighting Hobby Lobby at the Supreme Court, our AG, Chris Koster, would not join us. He wouldn't join the Little Sisters of the Poor. Other attorneys general from other states joined the sisters, supported them. I filed a brief on behalf of the sisters. Chris Koster wouldn't do it. And right now, Mark, as we speak, Chris Koster has briefs filed in the Supreme Court of the United States against a little Lutheran church here in our own state, here in Missouri. And the Department of Natural Resources in our own state is telling this little church that they are not eligible for a public grant to resurface a playground, simply because they're a church. And Chris Koster is actually defending this discriminatory decision at the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, it's just exactly backwards, and that's what's got to change. We need an AG, and we need statewide officials up and down the line who are going to side with the Constitution and the people of Missouri and their rights, and not with the Obama leftists.
If I could ask your opinion, Josh, on the ruling, the interpretation of Title IX that's being used against North Carolina, and obviously I'm sure would have come into play maybe in Missouri had Senate Joint Resolution 3039 been approved. I find that frustrating that the states are being blackmailed with education funds.
It is absolutely absurd and unconscionable for exactly the reasons you mentioned, Mark. And when we have the Obama people, again, the president himself, taking a federal law, the 1972 law, Title IX, taking a law that has to do with discrimination against women, and he says, oh, no, now I'm going to reinterpret it to force states to maintain transgender bathrooms. That law has nothing to do with that issue. It's absolutely crazy, and he is trying to force this down now the throats of all 50 states and the people of these states. That is just unconstitutional. I mean, the president doesn't get to make laws. Somebody should tell this president that, and the somebodies are the states. If North Carolina is going to go to court and stand up, and Missouri ought to join them and ought to say the president does not get to write the law. He does not get to rewrite laws on his own. It's just crazy, and it is a leading example of the kind of executive overreach and federal overreach that this administration has made its bread and butter. And it's threatening our constitutional order. It really is. It's threatening our liberties as citizens.
Well said, and something you as Attorney General could step in and stand up for the state on this, right?
Absolutely. I can and I would. We ought to join North Carolina in their suit. We ought to seek to file in support of them as they go to court to stand up for constitutional principles of federalism and separation of powers. We ought to do the same. And in general, whether it's the EPA or Health and Human Services or Obamacare, you name it, Missouri ought to be standing up in favor of the Constitution and our citizens' rights, and against this federal overreach that's threatening our churches, threatening ministries, threatening our families. We ought to be leading the fight rather than being on the sidelines, and that's why I'm running for Attorney General. That's what I want to do. Josh,
I appreciate you giving us some time today. Josh Hawley, our guest. What's your campaign website so people can check it out?
It is joshhawley.com, and you spell my last name Hawley. So it's Josh, Hawley.com. And go on there. You can learn more about me and our campaign and get involved, and we welcome it. Join this movement to defend our Constitution.
Josh, thank you, and give my best to your lovely wife.
I will. I'll do that. Thank you, Marc.
All right. You take care. Thank you. All right. Josh Hawley there. I first met him when he gave the headline address at the Lincoln Reagan Days dinner a year ago, and was just blown away. You need to hear Josh Hawley speak. He does a great job, and he's a great defender of your constitutional rights. And I'm sure would do a good job as Attorney General if that's the decision the voters make. 314-969-9797. You're listening to the Marc Cox Show. Speaking of that transgender issue, another story has reared its head where the cops had to get involved. I'm going to have that for you coming up here in just a couple of minutes, and we're going to talk to David Byler on this blow-up, this dust-up between Sanders and Clinton on the Democratic side. Stick around.